welcome to Chapter 5, where we will be talking about producing output. In this video, we're going to talk about how outputs are a key part of how a computer works. You'll get to learn what outputs are and how to use them in a program. Now, you might be wondering, why are we starting with outputs? Well, let's face it, we're doing it because it's the easiest place to begin. Now, before you go any further, I need to make sure that you've gone through the introduction and setup chapters. Chapter 1 introduces you to Java and coding, and Chapter 2 gets your environment all set up so you can start coding and running your programs and seeing the results. I'd also recommend that you go through Chapters 3 and 4, coding with Java and types of components, but at the very minimum, you need to be able to have your environment set up and working before you continue. So it's time for us now to learn the principles that are around output. There are a lot of different outputs that you experience in your everyday life, from a computer monitor, the screen on your smartphone, a file or database. You may not come in contact with those every single day, but if you're ordering shoes on Amazon, that information is stored in a database. If you're printing something out on your printer, that's output. And the sounds that your computer or your smartphone make, those are all outputs. So in this video, we're going to keep it really simple, and we're going to use text-based output. So we're going to write a program or write a line of code that will display, this is my first output program. The line of code in Java to do that is the line below, system.out.println, open and close parentheses, and inside that, double quotes, this is my first output program, followed by a semicolon. All program lines in Java, for the most part, have a semicolon. So you may notice that the thing that's in the double quotes is the thing that's going to be displayed. All right, so the thing in the double quotes we call a string literal, and we'll learn a little bit more about that. So sometimes we want to do something that's maybe a little more extravagant than just outputting one string literal. So let's say instead we wanted to output the number is : space 255. The line of code to do that, you could have just used a single string literal, but what would be the fun of that? So we're going to write a line of code instead that's system out println, and then a string literal, that's the first part, the number is : space, and then a plus, and then something we call a numeric literal, which is 255. So this is an actual number that's in our code, not something that's in double quotes. So what does that mean? Well, there's this term we call concatenation in programming, which just basically means combining some elements together. And in Java, we use a plus sign to do that. So that's what that line of code was basically doing. But let's say that we want to not just use a numeric literal like 255, but sometime you're going to want to write a program where the user provides some input, like let's say they provide a number, and then we display that number. Well, this is where we start to talk about the concept of a variable. In the next chapter, you'll learn everything you want to know about variables and more. But for now, let's just assume that my number is a variable, that's the name of it, and it's just a place that I can store a number, and then later I can go and get it and bring it back. And let's say that we set the value of my number equal to 255. Then the Java code would be system out println, and then the string literal, the number is : space, and then plus, because we're concatenating, we're adding elements together, and then a variable named my number. Now, in this case, when it runs, it's going to go out, get the value that's stored in my number, and plunk it in there for us. We've talked a little bit about output. We get the chance to try actually doing something and writing a program that will generate output. This is really the most important part of learning. Over the many years that I've taught programming, this is where students really start to grasp the concepts that we talk about, is part of the try section. So we're going to create a new program. We're going to call it my first output program. But I know if you went through setup, we generated or created a test program that we called my class that generated output. So we're just going to have to forget about that for a minute. If you have not gone through the setup process where you downloaded the IntelliJ IDE, installed it, and got it set up, you're going to want to go back to chapter 2 and do that before you proceed here. Okay, so I'm going to assume that you've done that. You're going to click on the IntelliJ icon, and it's going to bring up the IntelliJ IDE, and you're going to select the project that we created. I created one called Stuff. You could have either called it that or something else, but it would show up right there. And so when you do that, you come to this point. We're going to go down here to Source and right-click, and we're going to create a new Java class, and we're going to call it My First Output Program. Notice the upper and lower case, no spaces between the words, and when we're done, we're just going to hit Enter. You might get this little pop-up or may not. I'm just going to hit Cancel. And it's created a shell program for us to start using. So we're going to type something very similar to what we did in our first test program. And again, it's really important that when you type, you're typing the right uppercase and lowercase. In most cases, it's lowercase. That makes a big difference. And that every single word and space is exactly right. We're going to start by saying public static void main. We're going to put an open parenthesis. Now notice that the IDE automatically then puts a close parenthesis after it. That's because we want to always have matching open and close parentheses, open and close squiggly braces, open and close double quotes. So next we're going to go string, but this is an uppercase. At least the first word is string. And then we're going to use these square brackets and a space and args. Args means arguments, actually, but you don't have to worry about that right now. And then right after the ending parenthesis, I'm going to hit the space bar, and then I'm going to put an open squiggly brace. Notice it automatically created a closed squiggly brace. And then we're going to start again. We're going to say system.out.println. Now notice system is an uppercase, and I'm using a dot between system and out and println. And then I'm going to put another parentheses here, and it put on the closed parentheses. I'm going to use double quotes, and I'm going to type, "This is my first output program." What you type in these double quotes is what's going to show up when we run the program. So you can experiment and type whatever you want in those double quotes. And then once we're done, at the very end of this line, we need to put a semicolon. That's the one with a dot and a comma together. All right. Go over it a little bit. Make sure that it looks right. Make sure you don't have any errors, any red underscores or anything like that, underlines and stuff like that. And now we're going to run it. So we're going to come right over here in the project section. We're going to right click. We're going to come down to run and click the mouse. When we do this, it's doing three things. It did it really fast, by the way. It saved our program. It compiled our program. And it ran our program. And so we get to see the output. If you got something other than "this is my first output program," you have a bug. And so let's talk a little bit about bugs, because you're going to experience bugs all the time. And that's just the way it is. Even the very best of programmers have bugs. So let's just go through a couple scenarios that you're probably going to find that you get a bug. All right. So let's look at the first thing. Let's say that I spell one of these. Anything that's in blue like this is a reserved Java word. So let's say that rather than typing class with two S's, I just type it with one. Now, if I hover over this, it knows that there's a problem. Compact source files are not supported. It knows there's a problem. If I hover over class, it says cannot resolve symbol class, right? And then if I don't know, is it over here? Anyway, I'm going to actually run this again. I'm going to come back to this same place and run it. And now it's going to say class, interface, or enum expected. So it says, hey, you got to have a class here. All right, so I'm going to add it back in. And now let's do something else that's pretty common. And that is, we're going to remove the semicolon from right here. Now, just automatically, notice there's like a little underscore right here. And if I just hover over it, it's going to say, it's hard to see because my cursor's in the way. But basically, it says semicolon expected. Hey, buddy, I expect a semicolon there. And again, if I was to run it, it says expected, semicolon expected. Okay, let's try one other thing. This is also kind of common. What if I leave one of these squiggly braces off? All right, so no squiggly brace here. Oh, there's a little underscore right here. If I hover on it, what does it tell me? Ah, a squiggly brace or a semicolon is expected. So it doesn't know if this is just the end of a line or what it is, but it knows that there should be one or the other here in order for this to work. So it gives us an error. I guess let's try one other thing. I'm going to put this squiggly brace back, and then I'm going to take this system, and I'm just going to spell it with an lowercase s. Now notice right off the bat, it's red, and it says cannot resolve symbol system. It doesn't know what system is in lowercase. You know, computers are really smart, but you have to give them really specific things in just the right way in order for it to know how to deal with them. All right, so we went back to uppercase. Notice it resolved itself. And so now I don't have any reds anymore inside my program. Well, congratulations. You've written your first output program and are ready to move on to new and greater things. Here are some more activities that you can try to learn even more about this topic.